This is my walkthrough video for PCTC 2022, round 2, question 8, no authority here. So in this case, we're given a voting system, and we essentially need to run through the voting system to figure out who's going to be kicked from this committee. Okay, so my solution and some of the code that I write might be a little unorthodox, might be new to you, but stick with it, try and figure out how it works and learn them, because it's going to be quite useful later on. My solution isn't necessarily the fastest, but it's definitely not slow. So yeah, if you already know these techniques, then that's great. But if you don't, then it'd be great to learn them. Okay, so the way we're going to structure this is I'm going to have a dictionary where each key is someone's name and each value is their score. So everyone starts off with a score of 0, but as we run through our input, we're going to change the score up and down according to the rules. So let's create that dictionary called people, and it's going to be empty to begin with. And now we want to go through our list of people. And so let's do for I in range int input, because the very first input says the amount of lines that we want to take in, and so we can put that in our for loop. So now this for loop will run for as many lines as there are going to be input. And we can take in our line. And I want to extract 3 pieces of information from each line. I want to extract name 1, choice, and name 2. And honestly, I would say the easiest way to do this is by kind of using a neat trick, which is by, let's say, replacing the space by a colon. So we're replacing this space by a colon like this. And so this line, for example, instead of looking like this, it will now look like this. And this may kind of now scream to you that this is really easy to process, because all we have to do is we have to split on the colon. And so if we then do line.split colon, and we can assign name, choice, and name 2, and what do they call it? Yeah, so I'm just calling it whatever the question called them. So these are our 3 variables that we can extract from our line. And let's actually just make this a bit cleaner by shifting the replace up there, because that's just where we input it. And so now it's just a bit cleaner. Okay, so we've extracted our 3 things, the name, the choice, and the name 2. So we want to change name 2 in people by choice. And so we're going to say if choice is equal to up, then from people we want to take a name 2 and add 1 to it. But if choice is equal to down, then we want to do the same thing but -1 from that person. But we also need to consider the edge case that someone is in the committee but you can't vote for them. And I believe that's actually said somewhere here. Okay, I don't know where it is. But yeah, it says somewhere here that basically it's possible for someone to be in the committee but for no one to be allowed to vote for them. And therefore we still need to add the name to people, because if we were to just kind of run this code, obviously with the rest of the code written, we wouldn't actually get all 10 out of 10. I think we get 8 out of 10, because we haven't added every name to our list. And you might have already thought of this, but you get the edge case where, for example, there's someone in the committee who no one is allowed to vote for, and so they by default will just always have a score of 0. But if everyone else in the committee has a positive score, then this person that no one's voted for is still going to get kicked out, because everyone else has a score above 0. So this person with a score of 0 that no one voted anything for is going to get kicked out. And in that specific edge case, this code won't work. And so this is where we come across this cool library called collections. And from this library, we're going to import this command called default dict. And we're going to change people from just a dictionary to a default dictionary with a default value of 0. So what default it does, if you don't know it, I'll give you a quick rundown. It's basically a dictionary where you give a value, where you give something a default value. So if the value doesn't exist and you refer to it in Python, if you refer to a dictionary key that doesn't exist in Python, it's going to give you an error. But in this case, it's not going to give you an error, but it's going to, by default, give that key a value of whatever you put in these brackets. And in this case, I'm putting int, and int just means 0. If I were to put string, that would just be an empty string. If I were to put list, that would be an empty list, and so on. So here I'm putting int, and that means that when we reference someone's name on line 10 and 12, even if that person doesn't already exist in our dictionary, we're still like our code won't throw an error. Like that, the code will automatically create this person in the dictionary with a value of 0 before then doing the add or plus, the plus or minus 1. And yeah, there are loads of different ways you could have achieved this without bothering to use this library. But I just thought it'd be cool to show you how this library works if you've never come across it. But yeah, there are, of course, other ways to do this. Okay, and now we also just need to make sure that we add name to the list to cover the edge case I was just describing. And so the dictionary, let's get the name, and we want to essentially make sure this name exists, but equally, if this name already exists, we don't want to change it, right? If the name is already at like +5, we don't want to just reset it to 0. So we don't just want to do that to make the name exist. Now this would work if you, for example, put that in an if statement that said, if name not in people.keys or something like that. That's a bit clumsy in my opinion, and there is a better solution in my opinion. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say people name is going to be equal to itself +0. And so that way we haven't changed the value of name in our dictionary, but equally, if name doesn't exist in our dictionary, we've created it by referencing it. Because really all we need to do to create something in default dict is to reference it. And so we can just reference it by saying ±0. So we're not really changing it, but we're referencing it. And so this way we accounted for that edge case, and now we can get to the final part of our solution, which is to figure out who is going to get kicked from the committee. So the way we're going to do that is we need to first figure out what the min vote is. So let's say min vote is going to be equal to the minimum of all of the vote totals, which is just going to be people.values. So we're just extracting the values from this dictionary and taking the minimum one from that. And now what we want to do is we want to have a for loop that says, let's say for name and vote in people.items. So we're going through every key and value in this dictionary, where name is the key and vote is the value. And we're going to say if vote is equal to min vote that we found on line 17, then this person clearly had a min vote. And so we want to print their name to the screen. But we want to print all of the names in alphabetical order. And so let's not straight away print it to the screen. Let's first print, let's just call it names, which can be an empty list. And then instead of printing it to the screen, two names, we're going to add our name. And then after all of this code is run, after we figured out which names are getting kicked, we can then do names.sort to sort it alphabetically. And then for for name in names, let's just print name. And I guess it's 10 out of 10. Now there is a much more elegant way to do all of this code from line 17 to 26. You can actually do this in one line using list comprehensions and various other things. But if you know that much about Python, you probably aren't watching this video. So yeah, if you are intrigued, then maybe search that up. Maybe try and figure out how you can cut out all of these lines down to just one, which is much faster to type and easy to use. But yeah, otherwise, hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully you maybe learned something about what default dict is. And whilst it wasn't necessary in this question, using it in this question might help give you a better grounding or understanding of what it is, so that you can then use it in much more complicated questions. Especially, I believe question 12 will require it. Yeah, what might be a good exercise if this is your first time with default dict, then maybe try and code up this solution using not default dict. Just don't use any libraries. Just try and code a dictionary and figure out how you can add these names without changing them. And then once you do that, you can kind of compare that solution to this solution, and that might give you a better understanding of how default dict works. But yeah, that's it for now.